Church podcast. I'm Jamie, and this is episode 4 in our series where we're talking about living bold. And I just want to say right now, before we get into any of this episode, if you missed the other 3, hey, stop this video and go watch them. Because in the last 3 videos, you got to hear from John Wood talking about what it looks like to live bold while he's working on campus at Wake Forest. You got to hear about Casey, my wife, talking about what it looks like to live bold in a scientific world that is asking questions about everything. And she got to talk about how she's living bold in there. And then last week we had Sam Wilson on, who talked about, man, Sam's a plumber. He's the manliest man. He cut off his thumb with a hatchet. Like, go watch that video. It's worth it. But let me tell you, we saved the best for last. Because if you thought those were good, if you listened to them and you were like, wow, like I learned things, I was challenged by things, it was such a good time, then man, we got a treat for you, because you don't have to hear me talk. You'll hear me talk. But man, we're joined by one of the best volunteers we have at Southfork. She runs our middle school ministry for the girls at Southfork. Just a super balled in. She loves student ministry. She loves just all things seeking people to come to Jesus. And so I'm joined here with Jodi. Jodi, how do you feel?
I feel pretty good. Thank you. I think that was a pretty big intro. Not sure I'm going to live up to all of that, but thank you. It's very kind.
I know you will. Here's what I know. I know that we are called to heap honor onto people. And so any chance I get, I love to just give people their flowers, because I know not many people are giving flowers. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
But man, I'm excited you're here. So take a second and just kind of tell us, like, so what do you do for a living? Like, what has caused you to get into that line of work? Mm-hmm. Like, what makes you excited about it? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So right now, I'm the executive director of a small nonprofit called Growing High Point. So that's not where I started in life. I actually started in publishing and newspapers. So I think nowadays we can all kind of guess. If you had to look back, like, should I go into newspapers? Maybe not.
No.
But what it is to me for newspapers is serving the public good. You know, you're trying to help people stay informed, keep a check and balance kind of going. So after I left that, I went to Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I worked there. And then they had some funding things change. And then I went to a company that actually helps nonprofits do fundraising and do it in a good way. But after 6 years of doing that, I decided I want to go do the work. I don't want to just talk about doing the work.
I like that.
So I just passed my 1-year anniversary at Growing High Point. We do urban agriculture.
Okay.
So we're working in the 5th poorest zip code in North Carolina.
Wow.
Taking vacant lots that were just blighted and garbage filled, things like that, turning them into urban farms. And then trying to get that produce out into food deserts, feed people, employment, all that kind of good stuff. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
We something really cool. It's not part of that, but so I went to school at Piedmont, the Bible college, right down the road actually from Southfork. And while I was there, a nonprofit come in, and there was like some land beside, and they turned it into a community garden.
Absolutely.
And so that was super cool to get to see them come in and work with that. But so what caused you to want to jump in? So you started a newspaper, which I think you made the right jump leaving the newspaper business. Like,
I had to,
if you're a newspaper, I'm so sorry.
No,
like,
and I appreciate everything they do, and it's so valuable, but I have to pay my bills too. So there's like a balance there. Yeah.
Like, I love it, but man, like that water bill's coming. And if you live in Winston-Salem, they want you to pay that water bill.
They absolutely do.
But so what caused you to make the jump from going from newspapers to starting work in nonprofits?
It's the same idea of wanting to serve the public good, right? To do something beyond just yourself. And while there's plenty of great companies out there that make widgets all day long, I couldn't just be somebody who's at a company making widgets. Yeah. You know, to me, it has to be something that's just a bigger purpose behind it.
Yeah. I like that. You started to feel that burden of, man, there's something more that we're supposed to do. So talk a little bit now. So you went from the newspaper, you're now nonprofit running, awesome nonprofit. That sounds amazing.
Yes.
So what does it look like as far as religion goes within the nonprofit? I'm assuming, is it a Christian nonprofit?
It is not a Christian nonprofit. Okay. It was started by a man who has very strong faith, though, but it is not like a ministry.
Yeah.
But what I have found in the nonprofit world is it seems like a lot of people with strong faith end up in this kind of doing this work.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. It's something where there's a lot of prayers being said. People are referring to their faith and why they got started doing what they're doing and why they're doing it now.
Yeah,
But definitely not everybody that I work with is a Christian.
of course.
But it's definitely something that's pretty prevalent because, I mean, in my mind, a lot of the work that nonprofits do is probably work that big picture the church
Yeah,
could be doing. Like
yeah.
we could be, not we, Revo, but the church could be open 7 days a week doing a lot of stuff in the community. So I feel like nonprofits have kind of stepped into that role a bit. So
No, I like that. You kind of get to be, you know, even if it's not a straight Christian nonprofit.
yes,
Like for you specifically, you get to go be hands and feet of Jesus every day in your 9 to 5.
100%.
And so do you feel like when you're working in that, like the people that you interact with, do you get a chance to share your faith with some of the people, or whether it's people you work with or people that you're trying to work for and help? Do you have that opportunity at all?
there is some of that. Unfortunately for me as the executive director, I get to worry about the like big picture of paying the bills again, you know, raising the money,
Yep.
keeping all that in versus being out there doing direct service. But when I have the opportunity and it comes up, and even just with my own employees, if they're going through struggles and praying for them and doing that, and they definitely all know what my motivation is for being there 100%. So I definitely don't shy away from that.
No, that's cool. Do you feel like working with people, do you feel like there's because I know like one thing we talked about in previous episodes was like there was a stigma towards like Christianity specifically. Like talking Sam in the last episode talked about how, you know, working as a plumber, he was with a lot of blue collar guys. They were, you know, a little bit rougher background, some of them. And so there was a stigma of either there was the guys that were, you know, I'm Christian, but like, cause I'm in America and I live in the South. And then there was others that were like, I grew up in a Christian home and I rebelled against it because, you know, for whatever reason, XYZ, I'm now here. What does it look like with some of the people that you work with or you interact with? Do they, you know, would you say they're like friendly towards like Christianity, or are they more like?
Yeah, I do think overall they are. I do think in the kind of climate that we're in right now, that Christianity gets associated with some other political trends.
Yeah.
So I do think that that can be a negative when you're out working in the community sometimes. But overall, I think the people we're serving and also like employees like are pretty open to it. It's
That's
not
good.
something that they're like refusing to work with that or in something, you know, I haven't seen that at all.
That's good. Do you feel like when you're doing that, you're working with the urban, you're helping the gardens and stuff. Do you feel like when you're able to, you know, you get the garden started, this is more not like a faith question. This is just, I like the idea of the job. I'm trying to understand.
I'm not a gardener, so if you want to know something about growing something, I'm not the one to ask, but I can get the answer.
I always tell people when it comes to gardening, I just, the only thing I know is I know how to sow some corn, and it's a terrible story. But when y'all get it set up, is that something where once it's set up, it's self-sustaining with people in the community? Like, are y'all trying to teach people how to do it, or is it y'all are setting it up and y'all are coming in and maintaining it and then passing out food?
So we have 5 farms that make up what we call urban acres. And those are the farms that my staff is working on.
Yeah.
We're having a big volunteer event tomorrow. We're going to be working out on those farms.
Okay.
And then we have 4 other farms that we call an urban farm network.
Yeah.
So these are ones that we're trying to get people from the community to come out, and we're providing the water. We're paying the water bill. So there's fencing, there's tools, there's seeds, there's seedlings from our greenhouse. So giving them all the tools they need to be successful and learn and grow. And honestly, we're having great luck right now with refugees.
Oh, really?
So that's something that is important to me, and I've kind of brought in this year was bringing that access, because a lot of them live in apartment complexes. And so farming is a big part of their culture.
Yep.
And they want the produce and they want to grow the things that they were growing at home.
Yeah.
So now that they're here, we're giving a lot of them access, and they are a tight-knit community as well. So the word is out and everybody is calling us. So we're doing our best to try to develop more land and get more access for them so they can grow the things they want. But then also on the flip side, hey, grow the things that we want and sell them to us. Now there's money in your pocket.
Yeah.
So not only can you grow for yourself and the things, give it to your family, give it
Yep.
to your friends, but also grow the collards that we want, grow the tomatoes and cucumbers that we want, and sell them to us.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So working with that refugee population, um, do you have any stories about like, because coming from a different country, there's different religions, there's different beliefs.
For sure.
Is there any like stories, and you don't have to mention names, clearly, we don't want any of that. But is there any like stories or moments you can think of where being able to do this, there was a chance to like talk about faith with some people from different, the different backgrounds?
Well, it was funny. The most recent person we set up at an urban farm, her name is Maria, and she was talking with our community liaison, and we were, the language is a barrier,
Yeah.
right? So it's like broken kind of English, but he was offering to come help her on a Sunday, and she's like, no church? You're not in church? And he's like, I'm in church. He's like, this is my church. So, but yeah, I think I haven't, really experienced anybody who's just like, don't talk to me because you're a Christian, or don't talk to me about Jesus or God or anything, So,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It seems like for the most part, they're pretty open to it.
Yeah. And I think for me, as there's so much of growing and farming and everything in the Bible, the vine, all of that. I think a lot of people who work with the earth and do that kind of thing, I think it's just almost like a natural connection that happens,
So I want to shift gears a little bit now, because not only do you do that, you're working nonprofit, serving the community, but also you're doing the middle school girls every Sunday.
Yes.
So what got you in to start doing that? Because I know you've done that. You've served with student ministries. So what kind of passion did that start? Like how did you get into that?
Yeah. I started at North Campus in our world. And then when Walkertown opened, we went there and was again in our world. So that was always kind of where my heart was with, like 3rd to 5th grade.
Yeah.
And then when Michael came and I met him, I just thought that there was a need there too. Middle school was just such a hard time in everybody's life. That's just across the board.
I think every single person
they
have one story of middle school.
Absolutely. So I think it's probably a group that maybe a lot of volunteers wouldn't naturally gravitate toward, because they can be a little hard to connect with. So for me, it was just, I don't know, the need is there. Yeah. And just want to fill the need,
That's
so
awesome.
It wasn't something I was seeking out, because like I said, I'd been more like our world, but then with Michael and everything, it just seemed like a good fit.
Yeah. It's one of those, talking about farming, Jesus looks out and is like, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few.
Absolutely.
I'll wear a lot of different hats, quite literally different hats. I'll wear a lot of different hats around the church, but one of the things that I love the most is I run the student ministry at our North Campus. And what's really cool about that is I've been here about 5 years now, 4.5. And we've seen a big transition from when we first started. We were very high school heavy, especially high school girls. That was our number one.
Right.
But now you look at our student ministry and we are overran by middle school boys. And I've been telling everyone, I'm like, I'm building an army of middle school boys.
Like, a lot of boys.
I'm going to have them chasing hell with a water pistol by the end of this.
Yes.
But I always think, man, I love middle schoolers, because they are, the thing about middle schoolers that I've always enjoyed, and I'm sure you've experienced this, is they're so wide open. They're so willing to just call out their friend, call out their family.
They will say anything.
Yes.
Anything. Yes. If you have a middle schooler, know that they are talking about you.
Just know that
just
she knows about you.
Just know, I know.
But no, that's awesome. So talk to me a little bit, because there's some people that watch this that, they come to REVO, they come to South Fork or Walkertown or North, and they're unsure about the, anything middle school ministry, anything middle school related. And then there's others that, man, they might watch, they don't even go to REVO. So talk to us a little bit about what you get to do working with the middle schoolers now.
So what we do is on Sundays, we're there at the beginning of the service, listen to the music and everything, and then we exit. and we go to a room. We break up by genders, so the boys go to one room, girls go to another, and then we have content there, curriculum that is really based on their level.
Okay.
So it's taking verses and then breaking it apart into real world applications and examples and things like that. So that's what I do. I come in, I read through the curriculum and just think about how can I relate this to either something that they said or something that I know is going on in the world. Just try to get some conversation going, but it's not too hard. They will usually get pretty chatty pretty quickly. It's just listening. I encourage them to talk and pray for each other and things like that. And just trying to build a community and just let them know that what they say there is going to stay there. Yeah. And a lot of times they'll be like, "Don't tell my mom." I'm like, "I don't even know who your mom is. How can I tell your mom
I've
anything?"
met you 2 times.
Exactly. Like, I don't know who your mom is. So anyway.
That's awesome. So what kind of, have you seen any fruit since you've started doing that?
I have. So I think it was in May, I had texted Amy Edmonds. I think it might have been the first or second time that I was doing this here at South Fork, and I had one girl show up.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I just put the curriculum to the side and like, we're just going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And after that, I texted Amy and I said, I don't think she's a believer.
Okay.
I said, but she's curious, and I think, there's some possibilities here. And then we just kept talking. And then, of course, at REVO, they're talking about baptism.
Yep.
And she's like, I want to get baptized, but my dad said that I'm not old enough. And I was like, well, let's go talk to your dad.
Yeah.
So afterwards, we left and we went down. I met her dad and her stepmom. And I said, look, she's able to tell me exactly why she wants to be baptized and how she's become a believer. I think she's ready. And so they let her be baptized. Yeah. And so I had never been baptized was the issue because I grew up in the North and was Presbyterian. And I think I was, sprinkled as a baby, but gave the confirmation classes, but I had never been baptized. And I'm pretty far into my ministry at this point. So I never felt like it was something like, I need to get baptized, you know, because I'm down this path. But once she wanted to get baptized, I knew there was a possibility she'd want me to do it. So then Amy texted me and said, guess what? She wants you to baptize her. I said, guess what?
I got to do it
I got to get baptized too. So that is, for me, the biggest fruit that I have seen come out of this. I always kind of thought I was more of a seed planter, maybe a waterer when it comes to faith and people's journey. That was the first time I really felt like I was harvesting the work that people had poured into her, specifically her grandma, through the years.
That's awesome.
So that was nice. And so
I remember that. That was this most recent baptism.
It was.
If you want to see it, it's online.
Yeah.
It was super. I think I was actually the one that was doing sharing y'all stories, I think.
Yes.
And so that was super. That was a really cool moment.
Yeah.
Because there's something really awesome about, you probably feel this. I know I feel this on a Wednesday night sometimes, where you feel like you're just beating your head against a brick wall that's not getting knocked down.
Yes.
You say something and it goes, it doesn't even go in one ear and out the other. It never went in the first
Nobody's
ear.
looking at you.
Yeah.
Nobody's listening. They're all giggling. It's crazy. It's like, why am I here?
Yep.
What am I doing? This is not making any difference at all.
Yep.
So there's a lot of moments in that, I think, in ministry overall, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, a light switch flipped and you're like, okay, don't talk too fast. I don't want to scare them away. Let's figure this out.
No,
that's super. I love that. It makes me think of, like you said, when you had the one student.
Yes.
One of the things, so I've been doing ministry for a little while now, and me and Casey, we've been doing ministry. I've been full-time ministry since I was 19 years old now. So I'm coming up on 10 years of full-time ministry, which is crazy to think. And we always had a motto. We would say we're doing it for the one, taking it from when Jesus left. Yes. He tells the parable of the shepherd that, he leaves the 99 to go find the one that was lost. And that's always been our heartbeat behind everything we do, is we're doing it for the one. And so we'd show up on a Wednesday night and we're like, if one student comes, then God has blessed us with one student that we get to, share our faith, tell them about Jesus. And so for everything that we had done, we always are like, man, we're doing it for the one. We're making this podcast. And if one person watches it
Right.
and decides, man, I need to start living bold, then we did the right thing because we're doing it for the one. And so I like
I'd agree.
when you're talking about that story, it's like sometimes on the South Fork on a Sunday morning, it looks like there's like, I'll do announcements and I'll come off, and it's really funny. As I'm coming off of the announcements, it's like a mass
Yes.
herd of middle schoolers exiting, band members
Yes.
entering,
Yes.
and then here's me coming off the side just watching it all. And sometimes I'm looking, I'm like, there's like 30 middle schoolers just like stampeding.
Yes.
And so I'm sure that can feel sometimes overwhelming. And then when you have the one that maybe it's just one or two, that could be something potentially that could be like, it's like a dagger because you thought you were gonna, you get used to having the numbers.
Right.
But hearing you say, well, hey, we had one student there, and instead of just like, what is happening? What did I do? Start spiraling. You're like, God's given me this opportunity. This is there's a book that talks about how it's like God winks or God moments, right? And that's that moment where God's like, here you go. Here's that. You've been feeling like they haven't been listening. Well, here's one student that, well, she has to listen because there's no one else to talk to.
Exactly.
So give us a few minutes of if you had advice to share with people when it comes to, sharing your faith or living bold, because I feel like it's really cool because you have your toe dipped in two different waters. You have the nonprofit side where, you get to help meet literal physical needs for people, providing, you're providing food, but also you're giving them the opportunity, like if they're refugee, you're giving them the opportunity to do something that they love to do. Like
Absolutely.
you're meeting those physical needs, but you also have the ability to be like, hey, your physical needs, well, let me tell you about who will meet your spiritual needs. So you get that at your work, and then you're also getting that same ability through like the middle school through Sunday morning. So share a little bit if you had advice for people when it comes to what it looks like to live a life that's, actually taking their faith serious and living bold. Like, is there anything you would challenge people or say like, here's some steps that I took, here's how it started?
Yeah. I think it's saying yes.
Mm.
So when those opportunities are presented, even if you're not sure it's the right opportunity,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes people get like analysis paralysis,
Yeah.
like, is this what God wants me to do? Is this my gift? Is this, you won't know until you say yes and actually get out there and do it. For me, like I said, it started working with younger kids. It moved into working with middle school kids. I also have done some work with women and, supporting women in the church and things like that. So I think it's just all about experiencing it and actually just, getting your hands and feet going and working and then figuring out what's, okay, I did this and maybe some good things came out of it and I'm going to keep doing it, or maybe that's not my thing. I'm going to do something else. But I think as long as you're moving forward and talking to people and interacting with them, you're going to end up where you're supposed to be and find what gives you joy and what obviously, a higher purpose within your ministry of whatever, defining what that is for yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I like you just being like, just say yes. There's so many. I mean, if you come to REVO, there's so many different opportunities to say yes.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you can say yes to a lot of things in the church. You can say a lot of things in the community. There's a lot of options to get out there and really, really work. And you might not always hear the good feedback, from the work you're doing. But I think just trying to remember that you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it because you want to serve Jesus and what he did for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's the hardest part, I think, for me in ministry is just, for a lot of us, I think maybe you got to make sure that you're being poured into, because you can just like in a cup or something, like the hole in a bottom is pouring out, right? So I'm pouring out and I'm working with people, but I need to also be careful that I'm getting poured into by, staying in the word and hearing sermons and things like that, because it's really easy to get burned out.
Yeah,
so I think that's really something that volunteers have to watch.
I would agree. I think so many people, I think there's so many people that are, you hit the nail on the head earlier. You said it's like analysis by paralysis of like, I know I need to do something, and then they get stuck. And so I like how you were just like, just say yes to something.
Absolutely.
I know like we do, you know, if you come to Revo, like a very easy yes. Every summer we do a summer serve with Our World. I know that Amy would love to have volunteers say
I'm sure
yes
she would.
to serving,
Yes.
and they make it so easy of, hey, 3 times in 3 months. Like it doesn't get much easier to dip your toe
Agreed.
in and say, is this for me? Is this not for me? And if you go in and you're like, wow, that's not for me. Well, there's so many other chances of doing that just here at the church, but even outside of church. I want to ask you just one more thought. So you're talking about, you know, just living bold. Like the whole title of this video is Living Bold. What would you say to someone who maybe they feel scared to step out of their comfort zone and share their faith?
It can be scary. I think it starts with, I guess, more how you live.
Mm.
And this is what I tell the girls all the time. When you're in school, it's when you do something that's so different than how the world reacts.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in school and you see, somebody's being mean to you,
Yeah.
somebody's saying cruel things. Well, when you choose not to give that back to them and you choose to instead, through your faith, show them, something else,
Yeah.
then I think it automatically opens up the question of where is that coming from? Like, how does
Wait a
this
minute.
person,
Yeah.
why are they doing that? And whether it's the person who's being cruel or not, but there's other people seeing it, right? There's other people witnessing it. Could even be the teacher, it's hard to say. But when you are actually living it out and people can see it, then I think that's when it opens natural conversations to be like, why did you do that? What made you think that way or say that or respond that way? That's so different. Like, how could you do that? And I was like, well, I can do that because of my faith in Jesus Christ. That's why I can do it. So especially in middle school, I think, they are so afraid of saying something that's going to make them ostracized from the group or be looked at different or anything. So it's definitely a challenge. It's something I definitely encourage them in. But I think it starts with, just how you live.
Yeah. I like
Day
that.
to day. If people can see Christ in you, then it makes the conversation a lot easier.
Yeah. Bringing it all back around to the idea of a harvest and farming.
Sure.
It's the fruit of the Spirit. It's living the fruits of the Spirit, the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. If I got them wrong, drop it in the comments. But it's all about just living those out and trusting that if I'm living a life that is following Jesus, if I am not reacting in negative ways toward things, but I'm stepping back and saying, okay, I'm following Jesus, this is what he's calling me to do, then it allows us to see, okay, there's something different about you. There's a change in that. And then that opens up the question of like, well, why are you different? And,
Exactly.
And when someone, always tell people when they're lobbing you up that softball, smack that thing out of the park, man.
Absolutely.
Why am I not worried when the country's going crazy? Because Jesus, this isn't my forever home. This is my temporary dwelling.
Absolutely.
And it blows people's mind when people are able to understand that.
No, I totally agree. And it's certainly like, I hope people see, Christ in the things that I do, but definitely know that I have a long way to go in my walk as well. And I mess up every day. And I certainly tell that to the girls as well, and try to just be relatable and share my failures too. Because I think that also brings us closer to the broken, because I don't want them to think, oh, you're living this perfect life and you're this and you're that. In no way is that true, And
No.
let me tell you about what I did when I was in middle school, and let me tell you about this and how I messed this up. Because I think it just being vulnerable and authentic with people is huge, and just being with them in the pain and sharing like how, you've walked that same kind of path with them, and empathizing is also huge.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, man, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that as we talked about living bold, as we talked about farming as,
We did.
as we talked about serving middle school students who, hey, I love you guys. Sometimes y'all are a little weird. I'll be honest. But
Yeah.
as we talked all about that, man, there's something that really encourages me. And it's just hearing that through everything, you're just wanting people to hear about Jesus
Sure.
through your life, through your actions.
Yeah.
And so I hope that as a close of this series, that would become a heartbeat for people, is that they would start to see that it doesn't have to be these big grand stand on the side of the street and start yelling for Jesus. You can do that, but it's all about just our heart and our lives, and just if we live knowing that Jesus saved us, and if we know that that's the most important thing, that it should start to trickle into everything, and it should allow us to have those conversations. So I appreciate you being here.
Of course. Thank you.
This is a good time. Like I said, this was episode 4 of the podcast. If you missed any of them, or maybe you watched them and you're like, wow, that was so good, I need a retake, you can go back and do it. But we'll see you in the next one. Peace.